My approaches were disgusting. I was hard stuck, not understanding what the hell am I doing wrong and why is my attacks accuracy so low, you know? So, like everyone else, I would search up for an approaching guide on YouTube, and I've never really found a good advice that explains this in a simple, understandable way. What all these guys are saying is, stop approaching with attacks, start approaching with movements. But what the fuck does that even mean, bro? You know what I'm saying? So, today I'll make approaching as clear as possible for you, so that you can improve faster, stop being hard stuck, stop missing your attacks, and gain a shitload of elo to hit whatever rank you want, you know. By the way, go like and sub if you're interested in any of these topics, because that's what I mostly cover in this channel. Now, with that being said, let's go. Approaching is simply getting closer and closer to your opponent in order for you to attack them, right? Which means there's a starting point and an ending point of your approach. And here is where the biggest mistake is made, and also the difference between a good and a bad approach. It's how you go about doing this part right here. You don't approach out of nowhere and hope you can land your attack. You will have to position yourself in a good starting point, approach with the right movement options, and then attack. And the most common advice that is given in this community about this topic is to approach with movements rather than approaching with attacks. I'm gonna try to give you a clear explanation on how this actually works. Simply put it this way: approaching with an attack is a one-step process where you attack and move at the same time. Examples of this can be drifting in the air and falling with an attack, dash attacks, and attacks that moves your hitbox. So in these examples, you can see that you're attacking and also getting closer to your opponent at the same time. That's why it's called approaching with an attack. However, approaching with movements is a 3-step process. Step 1 is spacing out. Step 2 is using certain movement options based on your goal and objectives with that approach. And then finally, step 3 is inputting the attack. You can see the big difference between the two methods of approaching here. In the second options, you create a setup to increase the possibility of landing that attack, whilst the first one is just based on hope, which make it very risky and easy to punish. So your first goal here is to avoid approaching with attacks as much as you can, and the rest of this guide will be explaining how to actually approach with movements. We will discuss in detail step by step on how you can do that as efficient as possible. Starting off with step 1, spacing. Before you consider approaching and attacking, you need to be in a specific spot. We can name it the starting point, and here is where your spacing plays a huge role, because it puts you in that starting point, just like how we said earlier, where then you can comfortably choose what to do next. So the question here is, what's the starting point and where is it exactly? This can be different from weapon to weapon, since they all have different hitboxes and stuff, but we will be covering that later on in this video. So in general, the starting point is when you are close to the opponent's hitboxes, but they still can't hit you even if they approach with an attack. So your goal here is to try your best to keep this distance between you and him. So if they are far away, you shorten the distance between both of you to where you're close but not in danger of getting hit. And if they are too close, then you either throw a stacked attack to get them away from you, or you can just move in a way that allows you to create that same space we talked about. Keep in mind that this is so difficult to do if you've never tried it before, but if you can get through that period of time where you suck a little bit at doing it, and you start mastering like this skill of spacing out carefully, I promise you, you will get so much free elo. It's unbelievable. Like, you will see your elo increasing by like 300, 400 so fast, unless you're like 2400 plus, of course. But still, even then, if you can do this, it will help you in every rank and every aspect of the game, not just approaching. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to the next step. Step 2 is the reason behind your approach. Now that you've positioned yourself in a place where you are close but also safe at the same time, you can now use certain movement options depending on your objective with that approach. You mainly have 2 reasons behind an approach: baiting your opponent or attacking them. Let's start off with baiting. So here are the best movement options you can throw out to bait your opponent into attacking by applying pressure, and then you punish them. Number 1, empty hops. Probably the best thing you can do against grounded players and grounded weapons, where you pretend like you're about to either land or attack, and most of the time your opponent will either get scared and dodge or attack attempting to catch your landing. And it's so easy to punish them because you have access to both your aerials and grounded moves, since you are in the air but also really close to the ground at the same time, which makes punishing so much easier. Number 2, landing dashes. I believe they added this not long ago, and it's so powerful because of how fast it is. So basically, you dash jump fast fall into an immediate dash when you land. That'll allow you to disappear from the dangerous landing spot so fast, which means if your opponent tries to catch your landing, they won't be able to do that considering how fast this is. Not only that, but it also puts you in the best position to punish them if they throw anything at all with an attempt to hit you. Number 3, jump dodges. This is very useful against players who are constantly attacking when they see you getting closer and closer. Jump dodges allow you to enter that dangerous spot without getting hit. However, you need to be careful with this and try to not use it as much if your opponent is playing spear, scythe, cannon or gauntlets, because if they end up catching that dodge, you will get hit by an 80 damage combo that gets you from white to orange because it's in the air, you know. Or maybe even worse than that, you get like 0 to death. Number 4. Dash dancing. Dash dancing serves the same purpose of landing dashes, where you can get in and out of that threat zone super fast, but the difference here is that this is purely grounded, which means you can alternate between both to confuse your opponent even more. Number 5. Dash cancels. This is one of the best options to throw out, because not only you can bait your opponent by cancelling the dash, but you also get closer and apply even more pressure, which make it even harder for your opponent to make a good decision. I think those are the most effective options if your goal is baiting. By the way, baiting will always be better than attacking, because Brawlhalla is a game about punishing, not attacking first. If you want to increase your chance of winning, you should force and condition your opponent to make a mistake and then punish it. So for now, if you've never tried baiting your opponent before, try picking one or two of these options and go in game with the intention of baiting your opponent and alternating between the two options so that you don't become predictable. Remember, you will suck when you try to do this at first. You will inevitably lose, so just keep in mind the goal here is not winning. It's not ranking up. The goal is making a change in order for you to improve. And when you make a change, you will inevitably drop in elo and skill for a short period of time, up until you actually learn the new thing you're trying, which only takes about like 2 or 3 weeks, honestly, maximum, to like be actually really good at doing it, you know. Next up is the movement options that allow you to approach safely so that you can attack them. Number 1, dash dodges. This is by far the best options to go for when trying to attack, because you cross the entire threat zone, you get so close to the opponent while literally being invisible. Not only that, but you're also dodging in the ground, which means you will get your dodge back pretty much instantly. I believe it's like 1 second delay until you get the dodge back, which is very safe in my opinion. There is nothing better than this. It's your best approach option if your goal is just attacking. However, you need to make sure you use this the right way. I remember how I used this way too much to the point where it became a habit for me to dash dodge, like without even wanting to do it, you know. Even when I'm not in the right position to do it, I still go for it. And I will end up in a really bad positions and get punished a lot for it. The way to fix this is by doing your spacing right, just like we said earlier, so that when you do the dash dodge, you end up either behind them, stacked, or right in front of them and ready to attack. Don't do it when you're far away, otherwise you'll end up in the dangerous spot that we're trying to avoid here. Number 2, dash jumps. They can be very effective if your opponent is more of a grounded player or using a grounded weapon like blasters, hammer or greatsword, because dash jump allow you to jump and position yourself to either hit them from that 45-degree angle, which is the dead zone for a lot of weapons, and we're gonna cover that in a bit, or if you want, you can hit them straight from above. And you can also mix this with a dash jump fast fall aerial attack, or dash jump into landing and then inputting a grounded attack, so that you become so unpredictable. Number 3, dash attacks. Dash attacks are usually very helpful when you are somewhat far away from your opponent and you need that extra small push to land your attack, you know. Paired with a long distance attack, this can be hella powerful when done right, because it's easy to back out when you hit your opponent and when you miss as well. Now the final step, step 3, is attacking. After doing the first 2 steps of spacing out and understanding the purpose behind different movement options, you are now finally ready to attack. However, your attack and approach can be different from weapon to weapon, because every weapon have dead zones and weaknesses, but also every weapon have its strength and advantages, which means your movements are going to be different with different objectives depending on the weapon's matchups, okay? So here I will tell you what's the best options to throw out based on those 2 factors, starting off with the 45-degree angle dead zones. If you are diagonally upwards against any of these weapons, there is only 3 possibilities. Number 1, you'll either hit them, or second, they will miss because none of their attacks cover the spot, which means you will be able to punish easily, or third, they have only 1 attack that can hit you, which is not optimal at all. You can't be relying on only 1 attack, and if they did use that 1 attack, by the way, the chance of the attack hitting you is like 5 to 10%, you know, because they will either need to adapt really fast and use that 1 attack like we said, or do a grounded aerial move, which is still not optimal either. So as long as you are positioned in this 45-degree spot, you are more than safe. The best movement options to use against these weapons is close empty hopping and jump dodges. The weapons are lance, blasters, hammer, boots, and maybe sword and greatsword if you're positioned right. The straight above dead zone. If you can follow your opponent and position yourself straight above them, they won't be able to even touch you, and you'll get a lot of free damage. Because just like the last one, they will either miss or you'll hit them, since none of their attacks cover this area, you know. The best movement options to use against these weapons are dash jumps, dash spot dodge, and jump dodges. The weapons are scythe, orb, lance, blasters, cannon, battle boots, and orb, and maybe hammer, because the only thing that covers this area for hammer is just reverse dare or sometimes normal dare, so you gotta watch out for that. The 30-degree angle dead zones. These weapons have hitboxes in the shape of the letter L, which means if you position yourself outside of this shape, unless if it's bow of course, or you position yourself in this area, you will be safe. And if the opponent tries to attack, they will 100% miss, because they don't know that none of their attacks have the reach to hit this space, you know. However, you need to be careful from jumping close enough to where their hitboxes can actually hit you. The best movement options to use against these weapons are far away empty hops, jump dodges, dash dancing, and landing dashes. The weapons are greatsword, scythe, bow, blasters, and maybe sword. Just a quick note, with greatsword you want to keep in mind that they have the bridges move, so watch out from those. The non-dead zones weapons. Unfortunately for all the aggressive players out there, some weapons cover quite literally every spot around them and puts the player in a really safe place, which means going towards these weapons is not an option. So the only way you have in order to beat these weapons is by baiting your opponent to get out of that safe place and put themselves in your attack range. Since you won't be able to enter their zone, you have to get the opponent into yours whilst they are in stun frame. The best movement options to use against these weapons are dash dancing, dash dodges, landing dashes, and dash cancels. The weapons that covers everything around them are axe, katars, gauntlets, spear, and sword. You can also use the similar approaches against these weapons since they cover a decent amount of space as well. Weapons like boots, orb, cannon, bow, and greatsword. Now finally, you will fucking like and subscribe, because this shit took a whole freaking week to make. God damn, I can't believe I actually finished this video. Holy fuck. This actually, like, no joke, took me 8 hours every single day for a week to make. So you better press the fucking like, alright? By the way, if you didn't know, you can click on share and then copy the link so that the algorithm thinks that you've shared the video and they will recommend it to more people. You don't even need to send it to anyone. Just click on share and copy link, alright? Thank you so much for watching, and tell me what's the guide you want me to make, alright? Because the only reason I made this guide because someone asked me to do it in the comments. So go ahead and tell me what's the thing you're struggling with the most, and I'll do my best to make the perfect guide for you. Alright, take care, bruh. And like the fuck